Uneducated psychologist. So, am I religious? No, I don't think so. Let's go back. Religion starting about 500 years ago from separation between church and state. Why did that happen? Why was it necessary? Because they were powerful, educational, and most important, endeavoring in mercantile trade. And so information passed through taking notes and disseminating with the printing press. And artists started discovering real truths, therefore becoming scientists. And what they discovered about the fundamental laws of the universe went against the power of the church. So they argued, well, let's have a separation philosophically. We're just studying the material world. We're not studying the spiritual world. Mind is separated from material. And therefore, that's where dualism begins. Few generations later, the scientists continue with their work, and then they fall in love with their own perspective of purely materialism, because as they become more educated and technology grows, they get more information from that. It's progressing while the church is not. And so that becomes now the separation, dualism and materialism, even though dualism has materialism in it. And then we move on to the 19th century with idealism or analytic idealism. And then the idea of, well, let's push it further. If you have materialism, which came out of dualism, well, why can't you just have the mind on the other side of the equation? And so that's where that came from. And if we push that further, of course, in the 20th century with Einstein, we start seeing the limits of materialism pushing back against as well with how things can be relative in time, and therefore space-time appears. So that's where we want to take it. Instead of thinking space-time, space is first, and objects are in it, with a repetition in time, we'll think time-space. Time is first, and things are of time. Space is of time. Time is fundamental, space is emergent. If we look at it from that perspective, it becomes very clear how consciousness, we will test, obviously, will not emerge if we have more and more complicated computers, even if they're as powerful as our brains, and even in the shape of the medulla oblongata, which I will get to momentarily of why that's relevant. Okay, I'll do it now. But that is the physical representation of the disassociation of the single mind of time, the mind of God. That disassociation is where your consciousness comes from. In that spiral shape is where your memories are formed. They're not stored there, they're simply formed there. They are stored in the physical universe through the assembly number index of that formation. That is part of assembly theory and constructor theory, which is the most modern ideas right now. And so through survival of the fittest, which is most relevant in animals, but we see it, in inanimate objects, they also have a lifespan over large timescales, and they also devolve, but really they're being compressed over time. Their index is being compressed. And why is this happening? Because the index number and the index assembly process is dark matter. Dark matter is invisible to anything except gravity, the big mystery of gravity as a force. That is the connection between your memories and all of the memories of the inanimate world, and of course yours as well. But the inanimate is the majority. So that brings me to the final theory from materialism, which almost it doesn't prove, but it gets close to moving to idealism, which is string theory. The idea that's purely mathematical, that cannot be proven, but yet is complete. And so you see where materialism has pushed so far that it has literally become idealism. Uneducated psychologist, you tell me what you think.